Okay, welcome everyone. Here we are with chapter 22, Teach Only Love. And this is another short chapter, and it's all about a profound experience about consistency. Oh, my earbuds in. All about consistency and going really deeply into it, well, there's an experience of projection or judgment, and then this deep call for consistency, to know it. What is it? Where is it? Where can it be found? And walking through that with the Holy Spirit to learn what it is. Okay. So we'll just take a moment to just drop in together into stillness before we go through this chapter, and just open to this profound, practical, simple remembrance of the truth. Thank you. Chapter 22, Teach Only Love, Summer 2006. And we start with 2 quotes from A Course in Miracles. The Holy Spirit extends and the ego projects. As their goals are opposed, so is the result. The Holy Spirit begins by perceiving you as perfect. Knowing this perfection is shared, he recognizes it in others, thus strengthening it in both. Instead of anger, this arouses love for both, because it establishes inclusion. And the second quote. The only safety lies in extending the Holy Spirit, because as you see his gentleness in others, your own mind perceives itself as totally harmless. Once it can accept this fully, it sees no need to protect itself. The protection of God then dawns upon it, assuring it that it is perfectly safe forever. Innocence. David and I left for California to spend 10 days with friends and hold gatherings at their local center in the San Bernardino Mountains. Journaling. Kirsten. Good morning, Holy Spirit. What can you tell me about my fear that a sister perceives that I have attacked her? She may be right. I reacted because what she posted was not, in my view, in alignment with the Course. I felt that she was meant to be upholding a position of being a Course in Miracles teacher, and she was using language and ideas that weren't from the Course. I felt a sense of judgment and self-righteousness, and I probably shouldn't have written to her in that moment. I don't feel good. Am I just playing out the possibility that I am guilty after all? Holy Spirit, beloved child, innocence is what you are. Innocence is who you are. Place your innocence in the hands of God, and you will remember peace. Place your innocence at the mercy of the world, and you will perceive judgment and condemnation. Project not onto your sister and brother, for then they are no longer your sister and brother, but your enemy. Extend only love, and you will be assured of your holiness because of your allegiance with God. To question your sinlessness is to question God's Son, which is to question all that I have taught and all that God is. Kirsten, thank you. Where is consistency? I felt very reassured after receiving the Spirit's loving response about my innocence, but something was arising within my mind. I could feel the ego being stirred up out of its hiding place. One day, as David was talking, out again there. One day, as David was talking at the gathering in California, I began to perceive him as inconsistent. He would begin a conversation, and by the second sentence, he would seem to be contradicting himself. I wanted to jump in and point this out, but something stopped me. I watched and listened as our friends also listened, seemingly enraptured in what he was saying. Either they were not noticing how blatantly contradictory everything he said was, or they were pretending not to notice. I started to feel like I was going crazy. What was going on? I sat on the edge of my seat, feeling an internal urgency. David, I butted in at one point. But when he looked at me, I couldn't find the words to point out what I was seeing. I shook my head, and he continued. I had to get out of there. I quietly left the room, got my shoes, and headed out the door. I began walking up the mountain at high speed, and the feeling of intensity around what I had been perceiving increased. I felt an anger stirring within me. How could David be so inconsistent? How could the inconsistent writing from my friend yesterday have been sent out publicly? We were supposed to be an example of consistency. Was I the only one who cared? The further I walked, the more intense I felt. When I finally reached the top of the mountain, I felt like I was going to burst. I found myself among trees and large rocks, the perfect place to cry out for help. Holy Spirit, I demanded, where are you? What is going on? Where is the consistency? I want consistency. The anger subsided and a wave of sadness arose. As tears fell, I realized it was God I was longing for. It felt so good to realize this, to feel the depth of longing within my heart. I'd been expecting consistent behavior from myself and from the world. Some kind of a teacher self-concept had crept in, which I'd been trying to uphold for myself and was then projecting onto others. It was clearly not of the Spirit. Finally, as I realized where true consistency was found, the light shone on my struggles of the past, and a deep feeling of peace returned to my soul. I looked around and found myself in the most beautiful place. As I gazed out from my spot on the top of the mountain, I saw several hang gliders in the sky. They were free, soaring, carried silently and effortlessly on the air currents. Tears of gratitude continued to roll softly down my cheeks. I felt a deep stillness within, and I sat watching the gliders for an hour or so. I then felt the prompt to return and share the good news with David. Commitments lead to consistency. Journaling. Kirsten, good morning, Holy Spirit. I'm deeply inspired by the subject of consistency. What else can you tell me? Holy Spirit, God is consistent because he does not change his mind. I am consistent because I am the voice for God. The guidance that you receive from me is always consistent because it is of God. It is in alignment with God. The ego is inconsistency. This world is a projection of shifting, changing forms. Consistency cannot be found in this world or in the things of this world. As explained in A Course in Miracles, those who seek inconsistency in the book will find it, and those who seek clarity will find it. Turn not to form for your salvation. Turn instead to me, your guide, the one who knows your highest good in every circumstance. To feel let down after finding inconsistency in the words, teachings, or behaviors of others is the result of judgment. And the only correction is forgiveness of one's own misperception. Expectations and comparison always lead to disappointment. Only God can provide what it is that you are seeking. Your responsibility is to accept the atonement for yourself. To accept the atonement is to heal and become happy, to return to a godlike state. God is consistent, and by accepting the atonement, you are releasing ego beliefs and becoming consistent in your thinking. This means that your thoughts, words, and actions will align and become consistent in every circumstance. Remember that consistency is of God. Your commitment is to God and to listening and following my guidance. Because I am the one to whom the plan was given, you cannot possibly know the best interests of another. To judge the actions, words, and teachings of another will result in misperceptions. Again, I remind you, this is simply another opportunity for forgiveness. Consistency in this world is impossible because this world is rooted in time. Time is the illusory attempt to fragment eternity. To compare past teachings with the present teachings, or to compare what is said in one part of a book, such as A Course in Miracles, with what is said in another part of the book, is to attempt to pull separate pieces of information together, judge them, and draw a conclusion from the results of the judgment. Judging the form is insanity. It proves nothing and cannot lead to peace. The road to peace is forgiveness. It is the undoing of the I know mind that thinks it knows how the world should operate, what should be spoken, and how messages should be delivered. This kind of thinking almost always results in the temptation to withdraw, to judge the messenger, and to turn to separation as a solution. Commitments and assignments involving form are a means of practice for your mind training. I will guide you in these commitments. Remember that although the form will change, the content of my teachings and my guidance is always consistent, being of God. And in parentheses, to finish off the story, I wrote to my Course in Miracles friend and shared all of my learning with her. In my humble state, I told her that I wished I hadn't responded to her. I wished I hadn't responded to her writing until after I had moved through my own healing. She told me she had also taken the situation into prayer with the Spirit and was very grateful for my call. It was no surprise that we both came to the same realization of where true consistency is found. It is in our purpose of forgiveness, in our innocence, and in God. Thank you. Thank you for joining, everyone.